Long ago, and perhaps even now, if you know where to look, there stood a small stone cottage nestled on the edge of a sleepy village called Embermere. It was the kind of place that never made it into maps, not because it wasn't real, but because the people who lived there liked to keep their dreams unbothered. Time moved slowly in Embermere. The winds whispered lullabies, the trees leaned in to listen, and the stars always hung a little closer to the earth. The cottage sat on a soft green hill, blanketed in moss and little forget-me-nots that glowed silvery blue under moonlight. Ivy draped itself around the windows like sleepy curtains. Smoke from the chimney curled in spirals as if it were stretching before bed. But what made the cottage truly special was a single candle that glowed in the front window every night. Always the same soft amber light, flickering gently like a heartbeat. No matter the season, the rain, or the wind, the candle would shine. Some believed the candle was enchanted. Others thought it was tradition. But only one person truly knew why it was lit each night, and she hadn't spoken of it in many years. Her name was Agatha Bell. Agatha had lived in the cottage longer than anyone could remember. Her hair was silver gray, always tied back in a loose braid that smelled faintly of lavender and old books. She walked slowly, not from frailty, but because she listened to everything as she went. The creak of the wood, the hush of snow, the conversations of birds. She lived alone, though she didn't seem lonely. Children would wave as she passed, and she always had a pocketful of candied ginger or a crumbly biscuit to share. But every evening, just as the sun dipped behind the hills, she would climb the 3 stairs to her front window, strike a match, and light the candle. She'd watch it for a moment, always the same moment, then quietly whisper something, just soft enough that no one ever caught the words. And then she'd sit down with a book, a cup of tea, and wait. For what, no one was sure. Not many knew the origin of the candle. Fewer still remembered the man with the golden brown eyes who used to light it before her. His name was Tomlin Bell, Agatha's husband, once a traveling clockmaker who wandered into Embermere on a night so cold the stars seemed frozen in the sky. He stayed in the village for just a week, fixing clocks and lanterns, but never left. Some say it was the cider. Some say it was the stars. But Agatha knew, it was love, and it was inevitable. Tomlin brought laughter into the house. He played old records, baked cinnamon bread that never quite rose right, and read Agatha bedtime stories even when she pretended she was too old for them. The candle was his idea. "You never know who's out there," he said one winter, as the wind howled like a lost soul. "Maybe someone's walking home in the dark, thinking no one's waiting. If they see our light, maybe they'll believe someone is." So he lit it every night. Even when no one came. Especially when no one came. Then came the storm. It was the kind of winter that made stories. Rivers froze solid, trees cracked under ice, and the roads disappeared. Tomlin had gone into town to deliver a repaired grandfather clock, promising to be back before dusk. But the snow didn't stop. That night, the candle flickered and danced in the window, but Tomlin never came home. 3 days later, they found the sled, the clock still wrapped in wool, and Tomlin's scarf tied to a tree like a flag, proof he had waited. Agatha kept the candle burning through that whole storm. She didn't cry in public, didn't speak of it. She just lit the candle. And from that day forward, it was hers to light. Years passed like falling leaves. The world outside grew louder, cars, phones, screens, but the cottage stayed the same. New neighbors came and went, always curious about the woman with the candle. They'd ask, gently at first, "Why do you keep it lit?" She'd smile softly. "Because someone might need it." Sometimes she'd add, "And because someone once lit it for me." The candle became more than just a tradition. It became a symbol. On foggy nights, travelers would pause and rest at the foot of the hill, watching the warm golden flame. Some said they heard music when they looked at it too long. Others swore the flame flickered in patterns, as if it were telling them something only they could understand. One night, a tired boy with a patched coat fell asleep under the window and dreamed of his mother's voice again. Another night, a woman traveling alone wept beside it, not knowing why, but feeling comforted just the same. Eventually, people began to leave little things at the window. Thank you notes, poems, bits of ribbon, a carved wooden bird with a message on its wings, For the light that found me when I forgot I was looking. Agatha never made a fuss. She'd collect them gently, tuck them into a box, and sometimes reread them with a little smile. But one night she found something different. A letter addressed simply to the candle keeper. The handwriting was messy, hurried. I don't know if you'll see this, but I saw your light on the darkest night of my life. I almost didn't keep going. But then I saw your window. I believed, for the first time in years, that maybe there was still kindness in the world. I never got to say thank you. So I'm saying it now. Please keep the candle lit. Someone else might need it too. Agatha read the letter 3 times. Then she did something she hadn't done in years. She cried. Years went by. Seasons rolled in like quiet tides. Agatha slowed. Her hands trembled a bit. Her eyes were dimmer. But she never missed a night. Until one cold evening, as snow began to fall in lazy spirals, she reached into her little matchbox and found it empty. Just one candle on the windowsill, and no flame to give it life. For a moment, the room felt still. She sat in her chair, folding her hands. Her heart was tired, not sad, just peacefully full, like a book that's reached its last page. I guess that's that, she whispered. And then knock-knock. The door creaked open slowly. A young girl stood there, maybe 10 years old, wrapped in a knitted scarf far too big for her. You forgot your candle, the girl said, holding up a single match. Agatha blinked. How did you know? The girl shrugged, stepping inside. Mum always said if I got lost, look for the candle in the window. So I did. And it wasn't there tonight. So I thought maybe you needed help lighting it. Agatha smiled. Together, they lit the candle. Agatha passed a few days later. Quietly, gently, like a breeze slipping out of a room. The village mourned, but not with sorrow, exactly. More like a soft ache that came with the end of a beautiful song. The girl, whose name was Elia, stayed in the village. Some say Agatha left her the cottage. Others say the candle chose her. But every night, without fail, Elia climbs the same 3 stairs, strikes a match and lights the candle. And every night, people still see the glow. They stop, they breathe, they remember. The candle in the window is still there. Still waiting. Still welcoming. Still warm. After Agatha's passing, the world felt just a touch dimmer, but only for a moment. Because when Elia lit the candle that first night alone, something curious happened. The flame flickered, once, twice, and then pulsed with a warmth that felt like a hug from someone you miss dearly. And in that moment, Elia understood something. The candle didn't belong to one person. It belonged to the hearts that needed it. Still, she whispered to the flame, just as Agatha once had. For the ones still wandering, may this light guide you home. She wasn't sure why she said it, only that it felt like the right thing to do. Elia had never lived alone before. Her parents were wanderers, always moving, and she had grown used to quiet evenings of maps and half-packed bags. But the cottage was a different kind of quiet. It was peaceful. She spent her days tending the garden Agatha left behind. Rosemary, thyme, sleepy lavender. She swept the little porch and read the books still stacked near the fireplace. But nights were for listening. And soon they began to come. Not in droves, not loudly. But one by one, like ripples in a pond. There was a young man who sat outside the window with his suitcase and a note he never mailed. There was an old woman with gloves too large for her hands, who stared into the flame and sighed. He would have loved this. And once, a fox, not skittish, not afraid, sat by the doorstep as if it had an old agreement with the house. It stayed until sunrise, then vanished silently into the woods. Elia never asked questions. She simply brewed tea, offered silence, and let the candle do the rest. One rainy afternoon, Elia was cleaning out a high shelf when she found a small wooden box, smooth, carved with vines, and covered in a thin film of dust. Inside were letters. Dozens. Maybe more. Some were brittle, faded with age. Others still smelled faintly of ink and candle smoke. Most had no return address, only scribbled initials or small drawings of moons and stars. Each letter was a thank you. You saved me and you'll never know how. Another read. I was ready to give up, and then your light caught my eye. And one, simple, fragile, like a whisper, just said. I didn't knock, but I saw it. And I believed again. Elia read them all, tears sliding silently down her cheek. She realized then, this was no ordinary tradition. The candle was a kind of quiet magic. A signal. A heartbeat for those who'd forgotten their own. One night, a man arrived after midnight, shoulders hunched, soaked from the storm. He didn't knock. He just stood outside, staring at the candle with eyes like cracked glass. Elia watched from inside, unsure. Then she did what Agatha would have done. She opened the door, held out a dry blanket, said nothing. He didn't speak that night. Not even once. But when he left before dawn, he left behind a folded piece of paper on the windowsill. The last time I saw a candle in a window, it was my mother's. She died before I came home. I thought I'd never feel that warmth again. Thank you. No name. Just the memory, tucked gently into the flame. Spring came slowly to Embermere. Wildflowers pressed their faces to the sun, and the cottage filled with bees and birdsong. Elia opened the windows and let the breeze carry the scent of thyme and sugar cookies out into the world. Summer brought children who'd heard whispers of the candle house. They dared each other to leave notes on the windowsill, pretending they weren't scared. Elia would find drawings in crayon, stars, moons, one that looked like her. Autumn was quiet. Leaves danced across the porch in twirls. The candle's glow looked almost golden in the early dusk. And then winter returned. One full circle. On the anniversary of Agatha's passing, a storm rolled in, eerily similar to the one that took Tom Lynn all those years ago. The wind howled. Snow whirled in spirals. And for the first time, Elia's matches were soaked. She stared at the unlit candle. Her hands shook. Her heart thudded. What if this was the night someone needed it most? What if they were already on the road? She tried everything. Flint. Old lighters. But nothing caught. She sat there, near tears, when she felt a change in the air. A hush. And then, flick. The candle lit itself. No wind touched it. No flame visible. Just light. And in that glow, Elia saw, for the briefest moment, Agatha's reflection in the window, smiling, proud. Then gone. After that night, the candle never needed matches again. It lit itself each dusk, and never once faltered in the wind. People still came. Left notes. Shared stories. But now, something else began to happen. The candle's light could be seen farther than ever, sometimes reported from hills away. It shimmered like starlight in fog, called to people like a song in their bones. Elia was no longer just the girl who lit the candle. She had become its keeper. Its voice. Its heart. Some nights she would whisper to it, just as Agatha once had. For the tired, the lost, the ones who forgot they are loved. May this light find you. Now, you may not find Embermere on a map. But that doesn't mean it isn't real. And on a quiet night, when the wind is soft and the moon is kind, you might just see it, the glow in the window of a little ivy-covered cottage on a hill. People still stop there. Still believe. Still find what they didn't know they were looking for. And if you do, pause. Take a breath. Because the candle in the window still burns. Still welcomes. Still waits. And if you look close enough, you might just see someone smiling behind the flame. He was called Callum, though no one had said his name aloud in some time. Even he barely used it, only when signing hotel ledgers or the occasional digital form, eyes glazed over. He'd been traveling for months. Maybe years. It all blurred. Trains, buses, highways, silence. He kept a small notebook in his coat pocket, scribbled thoughts he never finished, poems that turned into grocery lists. He never stayed anywhere long. He told himself he was searching for something, though he couldn't remember what. His eyes were tired. Not the kind of tired that sleep could fix, but the kind that settles deep, like a fog behind the ribs. The kind of tired that comes from carrying too many unsaid goodbyes. It was late autumn, and the road ahead was swallowed in mist. Callum's GPS lost signal somewhere near a forgotten railway crossing. He was trying to reach a town whose name he'd already forgotten when he saw it. A bend in the road, a barely visible path leading upward. Something about it pulled him. He didn't know why. He just turned and kept going. The trees grew denser. The road narrowed. The mist turned to light rain. And just as he began to think he'd made a mistake, he saw it. A single candle glowing in a window. It was amber gold. Unshaking. Alive. Callum blinked. He didn't stop the car. He couldn't. His body moved on its own. He parked just outside the little gate and stood there, soaked, unsure what made his chest feel so full. He hadn't felt anything in a long time. Elia was older now. Not old, just rooted. Her hair had grown longer, darker. She wore a cardigan with buttons shaped like leaves and walked with the kind of grace you only earn by listening. She opened the door before he knocked. That too he found strange. "I saw you from the window," she said softly, as if that explained everything. He hesitated. "I don't know why I'm here." She only nodded. Most people don't. Inside, the cottage smelled of cinnamon, earth, and firewood. It felt like a memory he never had, but missed anyway. She made him tea with a little honey and lemon. No questions. Just space. They sat in silence while the candle flickered. And after some time, Callum said quietly, almost to himself, "I forgot what stars look like." Elia didn't reply right away. She simply reached for a little box on the shelf, one worn from years of touch. Inside were letters, of course, but also a smaller box, and inside that, a folded paper star. She placed it in Callum's hand. This one was left by a woman who lost her brother. She said she couldn't remember the sound of his laugh. The candle helped her find it again, in a dream. Callum turned the paper over. Written on one wing, in delicate ink, "I heard him say my name." He looked up at Elia, tears gathering. "Do you think light can remember us, even when we forget ourselves?" She didn't answer right away. But her voice, when it came, was steady. "I think some lights never go out, even when we do." That night, Callum was given the guest room. The wind was soft. The bed was warm. And for the first time in a long while, he dreamed. Not a frantic, surreal dream. Not a tangle of cities and lost buses. He dreamed of a forest path lit by dozens of candles, floating like fireflies. Each one had a name. Each one pulsed like a heartbeat. And in the center, a giant glass lantern suspended in the air. He approached it, and when he looked into the flame, he saw himself. Younger. Lighter. Smiling, arms wrapped around someone he couldn't quite name, but loved deeply. And just before the dream ended, the figure whispered, "You found the light again. Now carry it." The next morning, Callum didn't say much. He ate a scone, thanked Elia softly, and walked back to his car. But before he left, he placed a note on the sill beside the candle. For the ones like me, the ones who forgot how to feel. This light reminded me I still had a pulse. I don't know where I'm going next, but now I know I'm not lost. Thank you." He signed it. That winter, more letters came than ever before. One from a violinist who said she hadn't played since her brother's funeral, until she sat near the window and remembered the song he loved. One from a widower who stayed for 3 nights and never spoke, but left a drawing of the candle with his late wife's name written in the glow. And one from a teenage girl who just wrote, "I didn't know people could care like this. Now I do." Elia began leaving blank paper and pens near the window. People began to write while sitting in silence, warmed by the light. Some brought candles of their own, leaving them at the foot of the hill. Soon, at certain times of year, the path leading to the cottage would sparkle with dozens of tiny flames, like stars who had come down to listen. You see, the candle in the window is not just a flame now. It's a story. A whisper that travels in quiet ways, through old postcards, chance conversations, the feeling that you're not alone even when you are. People have tried to copy it, set up their own windows of welcome. And while none quite matched the magic, the intention mattered. Some lights are eternal because we carry them forward. In our words, in our kindness, in how we sit with each other in the dark. And though the world is wide and fast and sometimes heavy, there's still a window in Embermere. There's still a keeper. There's still a flame. And maybe, just maybe, it's waiting for you. His name was Leor. He lived in the town just beyond Embermere's woods, where the air was always a little colder, and people spoke with quiet voices even in their greetings. Leo was 7 the first time he saw the candle. He had wandered off during a village gathering, following the sound of a nightbird's cry, soft and strange, like a flute through trees. His mother had turned her head for only a moment. By the time they found him, he was sitting cross-legged outside a small cottage on a hill, gazing up at a golden candle burning peacefully in the window. He didn't say a word. He didn't cry. He just sat, smiling faintly. And though the adults fretted and scolded, Elia only smiled. He was exactly where he needed to be. From that night on, Leo began to draw candles. On napkins, on homework, on foggy windows. He wasn't sure why. He just liked the way they looked. Alive. Gentle. Right? 3 years later, Embermere's nearby villages began hosting a night of lanterns, a new tradition meant to honor the old ones. People would gather by the river with floating lanterns made of paper and quiet hope, sending wishes downstream. That year, Elia was invited to light the first one. She brought Leo with her. He was quiet as always, but something in his posture had changed. More curious. More open. "You want to make your own?" she asked, handing him a sheet of thin paper and a stub of charcoal. Leo nodded. Instead of a wish or a drawing, he simply wrote, "I hope someone far away sees the light and knows they can come home." No one taught him that. Elia read it, heart full, and said softly, "You've been listening to the candle, haven't you?" He just smiled, the same faint smile he'd worn the first night he found her.